Hey there, YouTubers. We're going to be making some deer jerky today. About 3 years ago, I got a really nice 10-point buck down here in South Texas. Took it with a bow, and you saw him in the intro to this video. I always said if I get a 10-point or bigger buck, it was going to go on the wall. Well, that's the only one I've ever had. I basically use the Hi Mountain products, the Hi Mountain Jerky Knife and Board, as well as the Hi Mountain Seasonings. I get no sponsorship from them, nothing from them at all. I've been using their products for well over 20 years. They've always done right by me, and they make some excellent jerky. As you watch this video, you'll notice that early on in the first sections, I'm not wearing gloves. I prefer to do the mixing and the handling by hand to get a better feel for it. And then later on, after the cure process is complete, then I'll wear gloves. And people say, well, why do you do it that way? Bacteria, bottom line. You know, and it's just like with brewing. Sanitation counts, but it has its timeline in the process. So when you're cutting the jerky, slicing it, and mixing up the cure in it, at that point, you know, this is the days of COVID. You wash your hands 20 times a day anyway. There's very little bacteria on your hands to start with. But during the curing process, it actually kills any and all bacteria. So anything that might transfer from your hands to the meat is going to be disposed of during the cure process. Now once the curing's done and I'm layering it into the dehydrator, that's a different story. Now the meat could be at risk of contamination if you handle it with your bare hands. So from that point forward, I'm handling it with the gloves. So that's the why behind it all. I really hope you folks enjoy this video. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button. That will help me keep making more content. Leave your comments in the section below, and I really hope you enjoy it. Stay safe out there in this wonderful COVID time, and enjoy my video. Good afternoon, folks. I am working on making some deer jerky today. And what I've got here is a piece of backstrap off of the 10-point buck that I got way back a 2 or 3 years ago here in Texas. And the way I'm doing this is I am using the Hi Mountain jerky board and jerky knife to slice this up. And it's really a neat thing. You basically use the board. You have either a slim board or a thick. And this actually helps you determine your thickness, along with on the cutting board you got a thin side and a thick side. So I'm making it with the thinner. Basically you put it there, you use your board to hold it down, jerky knife right here on the edges, and just work your way through it. Went a little uphill there. Might go one more. Let's see. If it does, it's not going to take much off. That's okay. Just a thinner one. A lot of people think using backstrap for jerky is just criminal. But I like muscle meat jerky in the first place. I don't like the ground meat jerkies. And if you want a good tasting product, you use some of the best meat in the animal. And that's the backstrap. And I'm kind of one of those people, I don't care what others say. I do it my way. It works for me. It gives me a pretty good product. And I'm happy with it. And friends and family are happy with it. So all the naysayers can say that all they want. I'm not going to change how I do my stuff. when it gets around time to do the seasoning here, after I get all of this sliced up, I'll also be using the Hi Mountain seasonings because I really like them. I've been using them for decades, had great luck with them. So, you know, if something works, stick with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the way I look at things. Okay, so there's the first slices. Now you can see you got a little bit of sinew right here on that edge. That's going away because you can't eat that stuff. And then I basically slice it down anywhere from about 3/4 to 1.5 inches wide. It's going to be going into the dehydrator after it marinates for 24 to 48 hours in the seasoning. And from the looks of things, I'll probably have 2 to 3 dehydrator loads. I let it run overnight. I set it up here in my building before I go to bed. By the time I come out for work the next morning, jerky's ready. But this right here is the real key to making a good jerky, is a good knife. And when you buy the jerky board set, the knife comes with it. And I've had this now for probably 15 years. As you can see, just occasionally will take a steel to it. That's all I've ever had to do. And I know some people say, oh, you should wear gloves when you do this. And I've got some food handler gloves, but you just don't get the feel of it. So, you know, I'm making it for me and for my family. I've never poisoned anybody yet, never made anybody sick. And this is how I do it. You just wash your hands a lot. And it works for me. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get the other 2 packs sliced up. I've got a couple of pieces of roast. This was the end of the tenderloin, or the not the tenderloin, but the backstrap. And so once I get everything sliced up, I will come back to you, and then we'll do the seasoning. So I've already pre-zeroed the scale for the weight of my stainless steel bowl there. So the first thing you have to know when figuring out how much of your cure and seasoning to use is how much does it weigh. And it weighs just a hair under 7 pounds, so we're going to call it 7 pounds. Okay, folks, here is the chart from the Hi Mountain Jerky Seasoning that shows us the ratio, how much to use of each. Out of there. For 4 pounds is 2 tablespoons of the seasoning, and 2 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons of the cure. And 3 pounds is 1 tablespoon, 1.5 teaspoons of seasoning, 2 tablespoons of cure. So that gives me a total of 4 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons of cure, and 3 tablespoons, 1.5 teaspoons of the seasoning. We're going to be using the Hi Mountain seasoning mesquite blend because I really like the mesquite blend. Alright. I apologize for having to do it this way, but I cannot find my tripod adapter mount for my little DJI Osmo, so I'm having to hold the camera with one hand and do the blending with another. And what I've got is I've mixed up my seasoning and cure just by recommendation of the paper, and now I'm getting ready to sprinkle that all over here. To start with, you just got to get in here with your hands. And then sprinkle in a little more. Mix it up. Now once I finish with the mixing here, what's going to happen is this is going to set in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours to let the cure work its magic. I put it in Ziploc bags, double Ziploc bag it, and so it just depends really on my work schedule. whether I'll be able to start these in the dehydrator tomorrow night or wait until Wednesday night to get started. And I'm guessing with 7 pounds here that I probably have at least 3 dehydrator loads full to work with. And doing it this way, sprinkling it in a little bit at a time, and make sure you rub the meat around here in the bowl and get it all picked up and absorbed. What this will do is get a better mix. If you dump it all on at one time, the chances of getting a really good mix aren't that good. Is it going to make a whole lot of difference in the long run? Not really. With it, sitting in here, and as the cure begins to do its magic and sucks the moisture out of the jerky, it will actually be dissolved in the fluid at the bottom. And what I do is, about every 8 hours or so, go in and take my plastic bags of the mix here and shake it up and knead it so that everybody gets some of the love from the cure and from the seasoning. I wish you could smell this, man. This mesquite seasoning smells really, really good. So I'm going to bag it up. This will be all for right now. And we will see you when this part is done and we're ready to start dehydrating. Good evening, folks. This is Wednesday night, May 13th, 2020. And I've had this deer meat in the Hi Mountain Jerky Seasoning now for 48 hours. So I'm getting ready to put it in the dehydrator and let it run overnight. This is my Nesco American Harvest dehydrator that I've had, I think, since sometime in the 1990s. This thing has made a ton of jerky, and just ask my ex-stepdaughter Dory. She loves my jerky, especially the deer jerky. And if she knew I was making this, from Alabama, she'd be on the phone already. I want some, I want some. But the doodlebug may or may not get some of this. It just depends on how much is available when I get it all processed. Because this is the end of the deer meat. So basically what I do is I just start taking the meat out of the bag and unfold it, lay it on the trays until I've got all the trays full. And this is one of the reasons I really like the muscle meat. It's much easier to dehydrate, in my opinion. I like the texture of it better, and I just don't like, I never have liked the ground meat jerkies. I know some people like them, and that's fine. Everybody has different tastes. But that just does not work for me. Now, when I fire up the dehydrator, if you look at what's on the instructions on the top for meat, fish, and jerky, it says to run it at 155 degrees. I usually don't run it that high. I run it a little slower. I find that the jerky doesn't get nearly as dried out. And I know it sounds funny. You want jerky to be dry, but not to the point where you can't hardly eat it. So it helps maintain some of its texture. So I run it at about 135 overnight. When I come out in the morning to start work, then around 8 o'clock, it will have had 10 hours in the dehydrator, so it should be pretty well done by that time. And sometimes you have to be creative, get that in here. But I always want to make sure that it doesn't touch. So rather than bore you all with loading these up, I'll come back again in a second when it's all put together. I'm getting ready right now to put the 6th and final tray on for tonight's load. You may notice while I'm doing this, I kind of get very particular and anal about trying to straighten these pieces of jerky out, lay them out as flat as I can. And I'm anal about a lot of things, but I'm a firm believer that you know, aesthetics count. Anything to do with food or whatnot, and some people would argue that jerky is not food, it's a snack. Nonetheless, you know, if it looks appealing, you're going to eat it. Now, I can't sell this. I don't, you know, I'm not in that kind of business by any stretch. But I make it for friends and for family. You know, my daughter Andrea and son-in-law Keith up in Dallas will definitely want some. My buddy Jason in Utah and his son Andrew, they follow some of my antics. They're going to definitely be getting some. Got my partner Jim in Alaska. You know, he's already out up there. He's working on building the moose compound. So yeah, there's a lot of folks. I've got a good friend of mine, school teacher in Georgia. She's going to be getting some. She'll share that with her sons and son-in-laws back there that hunt deer. That Georgia deer are nothing like Texas deer. You know, they're not much more than overstuffed dogs. Yeah, they're little tiny things. So let's see if I got one more little piece in here that'll fill that spot right there. See, this is what I mean about being anal and trying to stretch it all out, make it look nice. See, like I said, even though I'm not selling it, you know, I'm giving it away to friends and family, and I want them to see that I put some time and some effort into it, rather than just throw it together. Alright, so now put the top on, and that's where the fan and the heating element is, and plug that in. You can hear it starting up. I've got it set, like I said, to 135, and I'll let it run like that for 10 hours overnight here in the moose den. And then when I come out for work in the morning, I'll see how it's progressing, and when this batch is done, I'll turn the camera back on and show you guys what this first part of the finished product looks like. Everyone have a good night and stay safe out there. Good morning, everybody. Lone Moose here. It's now Thursday morning, a little after 8 o'clock, and it's time to check and see how my little cousin, my dear little cousin, has succeeded in the mission of transforming into actual jerky. And it's looking pretty good here. See, it's dried out. Still got a little flex to it. When you really bend it, it crinkles. That's what you want to see. So now what I'm going to do is take all of this off, bag it up and let it cool down, get the second batch going. Now, if you remember what I was talking about last night about aesthetics and how it looked good, now isn't that just a good looking piece of jerky? Once it cools down, I will be trying some. My old process pretty well is holding true. About 10 hours at the 135 degree mark really gives you a good product in the end. There's been other times I've smoked turkey, deer, and beef in smoker, and that turns out pretty good too. One time I made a heck of a mistake though, and I used some maple wood chips for the smoking. That was back when I lived in Utah, and basically I had jerky that tasted like bacon. only not nearly as good as bacon. So, lessons learned. You know, that's the thing with any of this. It's all experimentation and having fun. And this is how much I get out of one batch, one of the 6 trays. And if this works according to plan, I'll get this going. It'll be done around 6:30, 7 o'clock tonight. And then just before bedtime, I will put on the 3rd and final batch, and it'll be ready tomorrow morning. And once it's all cooled down, then what I do is take and break it up in smaller portions and vacuum seal it and freeze it so that it doesn't go bad on me over time. And I can enjoy this for quite a while. Same for friends and family, you know. They don't have to eat it up right away when I give it to them. So, works out good for everybody that way. Now what I'm really interested in is once I do get to the point where I'm retired up in Alaska and do a little hunting or a little trading with folks and get my hands on some real moose meat and or some caribou and see how that does as jerky. I know it does good as stews and steaks and roasts, so I've been told, but never really talked to anyone who's made any jerky out of it. I know I'm not a trailblazer there, other people have. It's just that I have not run across them yet. Okay, well, you folks have seen this part before where I load it all up, so I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera down now, finish this up, plug it in, and then I will be back and see you all this evening. Howdy there, moose tubers. Batch number 2 is done, so I'm going to take it out of the dehydrator right now and bag it up. And the last batch I won't be able to put in until about 10 o'clock tonight. Otherwise it'll be done about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I definitely do not want to get up that time to have to deal with this. This really is how simple it is to make good jerky. You don't have to make it complicated. Now, before I make my move up to Alaska, I will be getting a new dehydrator. I want to get one of the big commercial types that Cabela sells. I think it's like $449 for the biggest one. And it's got some ridiculous number, like 16 or 18 racks or something like that. But when you look at the possibility of doing moose jerky and caribou jerky and who knows what else, along with dehydrating some vegetables, because you can actually dehydrate vegetables like corn and peas and such, and store them in canning jars for long-term storage. And then if you're going to use it in soups and stews and such, all you have to do is rehydrate it a little bit, or even just put it straight in the in the stew pot, and it'll rehydrate as it cooks. And you've saved yourself a lot of space, and you've got good fresh vegetables. You know where they came from. So that's going to be another one of my test projects, proof of concepts here this fall, if my corn comes on. So far, a lot of it's starting to tassel out, and today is May the 14th, so it's coming along pretty good. I planted a lot of corn, this early variety, so now I'll just set that out and let that cool, and then I'll close it up when I come back tonight and put the last one in. I won't put you through having to watch me do number 3, but I'll give you a wrap up after they're all done and weigh it and see what I came up with. Thank you, folks. Talk to you later. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, May 15th, 2020, and this jerky project is now done. I'm down to, this was the last that I ran overnight. Yeehaw! Now, if you remember when I started out with this, I had 7 pounds of meat. I added that little bit of seasoning, and we run it through the Nesco dehydrator, the American Harvest. Now, I have this scale calibrated here, and so when we're all said and done, if you can see this, we have just under 3 pounds of jerky after dehydration. So we lost over 4 pounds of fluid. So what this does for us, tells us that you're losing over half of the initial weight. Now, you know, around here jerky's selling for about $45 a pound. So that's not bad. I used the exact measurements. Now, I'm a person who likes a lot of salt. I mean, this is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, not at all. But for me personally, I would prefer a little more salty mix, so either maybe a little more rub than what the recipe calls for, or use one of the others that has more of a salt base. But overall, it came out very good. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe to see more of my content. I do videos on all kinds of different subjects, whatever happens to hit my geriatric moose mind at the time. So everyone continue to stay safe out there in the COVID environment, and I will see you in my next video.